Whether you like Candice Owens or not, one thing is certain: this woman certainly knows how to make an argument.
That have been arrested for being serial killers, that just were killing people because they wanted to. Do we protest and boycott doctors? Do we assume all doctors are horrible human beings because some doctors are?
Yeah.
Or do we realize that society is not perfectible? People suck in every profession.
True.
It is no excuse to paint society with a broad brush. It is.
I will go as far as to say, even in churches, there's been corruption. Even in churches, they may not have killed people, but there's a lot of sexual stuff happening among ministers. There's a lot of ministers who are corrupt. There's a lot of priests who are corrupt. Alright friends, without further ado, we're gonna get right into the heart of this video. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more of our notification uploads. Comment below, put your commendation below, put your thought and perspective as well. Share this video with somebody else. I appreciate you. Check out our merch below. And hey, without further ado, let's get to this. Now, this is Candice Owens. She is now talking about George Floyd, USA protest riot solving America's turmoil. This is an oldie. I didn't want to comment on this video because of the time and the tension that was going on back then. This is a good time to do it now. It's been over, what, 2 or 3 years now since this has happened, so let's get to it.
Facebook family, I have decided to do this video. It has been weighing very heavily on my heart and on my mind as well. And it was something that I wanted to say early on, but there were so many emotions and so much pressure for me to go with the popular opinion about who George Floyd was. And sometimes it can be difficult when there are just so many external pressures to say what you believe. And this was an instance where I felt like my silence would have been better in the beginning, but the more that I think about it, I realize that we are being sold a lot of lies, and at the detriment to the Black community, at the detriment to the white community, and at the detriment to America as a whole. So I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. I'm going to explain why, and I hope that some of you guys will understand where I'm coming from. I have spent a considerable amount of time reading a lot of Black authors that I think are some of the most brilliant Black Americans breathing. Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Thomas Sowell, and I recently came across something that was an idea that was planted into my head by Shelby Steele, and it has been something that I cannot forget. It is something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. And it is something that I hope for the Black Americans that are watching will stick with you for the rest of your life. Shelby Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities. Our culture is unique from other communities because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain what that means. It means to say that not every Black American is a criminal, not every Black American is committing crimes, but we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good. You would be hard pressed to find.
That is a very good point here by Shelby Steele. I'm looking it up as well. So the quotation goes as follows, that we cater to the bottom denominator of our community. We are very unique in that way because no other, I guess, community does that. And I have to admit, that is actually true. The worst criminal in our community is like, they glorify the criminal, right? He commits a crime, gets locked up, and they go about saying free so-and-so, free so-and-so, free so-and-so. But the thing that the man was doing in the community was hurting the people of his own race most of the time. And the crimes that he commits, he has to do his time. And one thing I think is very strange about the Black community, sometimes, not all, praise God, but some of us, we exalt the criminal and we make fun of the college graduates. You got a Black man who goes up to do the right thing. We call him all kind of name, Uncle Tom, this and that. He goes to college and does his thing and build his business and so on. He doesn't get any respect in the community, but an average criminal who's committing crimes, selling drugs, and hurting women in the community, they get promoted. They get to be called and protested that they're free. That she's making a strong case here. I can understand exactly where she's coming from.
A Jewish person who has spent 5 stints in prison, who commits a crime and dies while committing a crime, and that the Jewish people champion and demand justice for. You will be hard-pressed to find this in white America. You'll be hard-pressed to find this even in Latino America. If there is a person that is spent multiple times in prison, you are not going to see a bunch of Latinos coming out demanding justice for this person, even if,
True.
and I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any defense for Derek Chauvin. I hope Derek Chauvin gets the justice that he deserves to be, implemented upon him, and that the family of George Floyd deserves justice for the way that he died. But I also am not going to accept the narrative that this is the best the Black community has to offer. For whatever reason, it has become fashionable over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals into heroes overnight. And it is something that I find to be despicable, and it is something that I refuse to stand by any longer, and I am not going to play a part in it, no matter how much pressure comes from Black liberals and Black conservatives as some token of people wanting you to believe that this is the only way you can be Black, is you have to say this was wrong and that this person was amazing. I won't do that. George Floyd was not an amazing person. And as soon as this video hit the internet, I did just basic searches. Everyone jumped on it and was looking at the police officer, and everyone agrees that the police officer was wrong, and the police officer has been arrested. So that is not the reason I'm not discussing that, is because that is not something that has been misconstrued in the media.
Yep, according to her argument, she does acknowledge what was done was wrong in the way that it was done. So she's not here trying to justify the police officer in this case, although there are some things that are very questionable, how Mr. Floyd did die. However, she is making an argument. The argument is very simple. There goes her thesis is this. George Floyd does not represent the Black community. He is not a martyr. He's not the face of the Black race. Let's stop making him that. That is really what she's saying here from my examination. And I'm going to keep listening here to see where this is going.
He has been turned into the devil that he is, and there is no reason for us to harp on that any longer, because white Americans are not uplifting Derek Chauvin as a victim or pretending that he's an amazing human being. But George Floyd is being uplifted as an amazing human being. For those of you who have not yet seen the clips and did not pursue or wait for more clips to come out, first and foremost, George Floyd at the time of his arrest was high on fentanyl, and he was high on methamphetamine. This came back in both of his autopsy reports. If you pursue the 911 transcript, you can see the person describing somebody who is out of their mind high, and which is what made the person fearful, because he tried to use a bill that I guess was a fake bill to purchase something, and then he was outside acting weird, and they in their police call said that this person was obviously distorted and on drugs. When he is put into handcuffs and is put against the wall, a baggie of what looks to be like cocaine or it's white. It's a white baggie that he drops onto the floor that you can see in an image. If you look up the clip, the media is refusing to circulate it. You can find it on Twitter. If you use DuckDuckGo and look up George Floyd baggie, you can watch the clip yourself with your own eyes. He had drugs on him at the time of his arrest. Now, barring all of that, nobody thinks that he should have died during this arrest. But
yeah, good point. Yeah, he had drugs on him, like many people do on a regular basis, but did he deserve to die the way he did? I will say no, he doesn't. But let's see where she goes with this.
What I find despicable is that everyone is pretending that this man lived a heroic lifestyle when he didn't. And I want to talk about what his lifestyle was leading up to this moment, and why I refuse to accept the narrative that this person is a martyr or should be lifted up in the Black community, and that we should be buying t-shirts with his name on it, okay? So here we have, first and foremost, let's start from the bottom of his record. And by the way, I am not saying that if you have a record, you don't deserve a second chance. I think people get arrested, and some people can serve time in prison. And I believe in second chances, but I do draw the line when it comes to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth chances.
Yeah, I'm glad she says that. having a record doesn't always mean you're a bad person. Sometimes in life, we all have made bad decisions, you know. But I certainly, if you have a rap sheet, that's something else. It's just a pattern here. The statistics is against you. But if you have a record, and we all have, you know, I have not been locked up, but I have a record of sin. Jesus, by his grace, certainly has done a work in my heart. So I'm very grateful for that. So I'll never condemn another person because they have a record. But however, your record tells me something about you, about your life, and I need to consider that as well. I can't be blindsided, you know, in the process of loving and respecting you, and fail to see that there's a history here we need to talk about. Let's keep going.
1998, he spent 10 months in prison for theft with a firearm. That was the first prison stint that I could find on him. In 2002, he spent 8 months in prison for a cocaine offense. In 2004, just 2 years later, he spent another 10 months in prison for a cocaine offense. In 2005, he spent another 10 months in prison for having less than 1 gram of cocaine. After
3 or 4 strikes for me, I start to say we have a pattern, because I have to examine pattern. We don't go and beat on a man for an occasional wrong or an occasional right. We don't do that with people. But when there is a consistent pattern in someone's way of living, we have every reasons to start asking serious questions. And I'm seeing a pattern here in George Floyd's life. You know, that pattern shows that Mr. Floyd and drugs and prison has been a thing. You know, so his family could certainly testify to that. Those who know him certainly know what I'm talking about here. What Candice Owens is showing based on these facts, we don't have an innocent man in our hands here, as it is depicted in the media. We got to be compassionate and loving and care. I'm not saying his death was proper. I'm not saying the way he died was okay. It is never okay. But he's a martyr. He's a figure for the black community with this rap sheet. I don't know. I'll let you comment below.
On him again. In 2007, and this was the biggest instant that I had that made me realize this was a horrible human being that I am not going to pretend was a good person. In 2005, a woman who was pregnant received a knock at the door, and she went to the door, and the person pretended to be someone that worked for the water department. So she opened her door and quickly realized that the person at her door did not work for the water department and attempted to slam it. At the moment that she was attempting to slam it, a Ford pulled up and another 5 men jumped out of the car, and one of which was George Floyd, came up to the door, and they forced their way inside to her home, inside of her home. Mind you, this woman is pregnant. At that point, George Floyd took out a gun and pressed it to her stomach. She was screaming, begging for her life, and he put her inside of her living room and instructed one of his criminal friends that was with him to watch her. And
that's horrible. That's horrible. The news didn't talk about stuff like this. That's what's crazy about it.
To make sure she didn't leave the living room, so he was playing guard while they ransacked her home looking for drugs and money. They did not find drugs. They ended up taking, I believe, her wallet and her cell phone. Fortunately for her, her neighbor observed what was going on and caught the license plate of the people as they pulled off and called 911. And when 911 was able to, they were able to track down the car of which George Floyd was the driver, and they arrested him. And 2 years later, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that instance. Now, you can say the media is portraying it like he was just getting his life together after, you know, being released in 2014 following that incident. He was just getting his life together and moved and was going to start afresh. I'd like to believe all of those things, and there's a gap, and he never got in trouble for 5 years until this incident when the police were called on him again. But you are defying common sense to believe that this person suddenly became an exemplary character but happened to be high on fentanyl and methamphetamine and trying to use a bill, a fake bill, to purchase something. And so in my opinion, George Floyd was a criminal. He was a criminal. And just because he was a criminal...
Wow, that's a strong argument here. What do you guys say? Was he an innocent man? Was he a criminal? Because it seems like the evidence is very strong, unfortunately.
Doesn't mean he deserved to die at the knee of a police officer, but it does mean that I am not going to play a part of the broken black culture that always wants to martyr criminals, who wants to pretend they were these upstanding human beings that just wanted to help society, that just wanted to reach out and uplift society. And he has a rap sheet that is long, that is dangerous. He was an example of a violent criminal his entire life, okay? Up until the very last moment. Now, again, I want to be clear. This is not a defense for Derek Chauvin. No one that I have spoken to, no one in the news is defending Derek Chauvin. He is getting what he has coming to him. Okay, great. But why are we pretending that this criminal should be upheld as a citizen, as a martyr in Black America? A martyr for a fake narrative, by the way. Police brutality, racially motivated police brutality is a myth, okay?
So, okay. I've heard this before. I've heard the narrative behind police brutality as being a myth against Black people. Because yeah, I've done some research and found out that that is actually not the case as it is portrayed in the media. It's magnified as the worst thing that is going on is all an attack on Black folks, but the truth is not really the case. All right, it's not really the case. I'm gonna let Candice Owens do her thing here.
So let's get into that. Not only are we using this death, right, and allowing it to cause these riots and protests, pretending this was some upstanding citizen in the Black community who was tackled down and killed for no reason, right? Not only are we allowing it to inspire riots in which Black people are dying, in which actual upstanding Black citizens are dying. Case in point, I'm sure you guys have all now seen David, the sheriff that just was shot and killed because he was trying to protect a pawn shop. Please look him up if you haven't seen it. I'm blanking on his last name. His first name is David.
It's crazy, right? The Blacks that are standing for good things in the community do not get the attention and the proper knowledge and respect by the media. But George Floyd with his rap sheet, sadly the way he died wasn't right either. He gets so much more attention than real people who are standing in the community. She's making a strong argument here. I would like to hear anybody defending some of this stuff. What do you say to that? Because this is a strong point. You know what I'm saying? So I'll leave it there.
Who was shot and killed for trying to protect a pawn shop from looters, an upstanding citizen, an actual head of a police. He was the head of a police his entire life, 77 years old, did everything right, right? So we now have to kill upstanding Black citizens because a non-upstanding Black citizen, a career Black criminal, died. Now, did he deserve to die in that manner? No. I can't say it enough. No, he didn't deserve to die in that manner. But I will be damned if the rest of us upstanding Black citizens have to suffer because of this incident that rarely ever happens in America. So here are some numbers for you people that are still believing that police brutality is a real, racially motivated police brutality is a real thing. First and foremost, okay, you have a 25% higher chance as a violent white criminal of dying at the hands of a police officer than you do as a Black criminal.
Wow.
Last year, a total of 9 unarmed black men were killed by police officers and 19 white men were killed by police officers.
Ooh, baby. I'm taking statistics in school. One of the things that we're learning is just that statistics has a way of telling the story. The numbers don't lie. And when you look at the numbers, it tells you a whole lot. This is not to be uncompassionate. This is not to be rude and disrespectful. This is not to overlook the fact that we have issues in this country. What has happened was wrong, whether it is done to the Black man, the white man, the Spanish man, whoever, right? The Chinese man. It's just wrong. But the point is, when you look at the numbers, when the numbers are conflicting that which is portrayed on the media, we certainly have to rethink our thinking. We have to make some other decisions here because obviously we have another problem in our hands and what is being portrayed is not exactly what it is.
For those of you that aren't good at mathematics, right, you might be thinking, oh, but Candice, white people represent 60% of the population and black people represent just 13% of the population. True. It doesn't matter what percentage of the population you represent. It matters what percentage of the violent criminal community you represent. And unfortunately, black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes compared to the white community. Let me tell you, 6% of the population, right? Black men, 6% of the population account for 44% of all murders in this country.
Oh my goodness, this is horrible. This number hits you strong. This is horrible. We account as black men 6% of the population, not counting black women, which makes up the rest to 13%. But 6% of the population, black men. So we have this qualification right there, categorically, right? So we transition from there, and we look at how many black men commit crimes and are behind bars. We account for 40-something%. How is 6% responsible for 40% of the crimes committed in the that is wild. Listen, that is overwhelming. That is actually outrageous. That's not supposed to be the case. Now, if we accounted for 50% of the population and committed 40% crimes in the world, I will understand that. It still doesn't make it right. It's still a big number. But when 6% is committing 40% of the crimes in the United States, all blacks, it shows that we have a bigger problem at home here. This number shows that this is not a, white cops killing black men issue that we really have. We have an inner communal issue. We have a violent issue. We have a gang-related problem. We have some real angry black men. Okay, and we need to go back home and figure out what is going on at home that's creating this type of stuff. Candice Owens again, she's hitting me hard here, man. I can't fight against this. It's just true.
According to 2018 statistics, that is what you call a gap. And yet white people who represent 60% of the population, we represent 13, black men are 6%, only represent 50% of all the murders, right? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. A 6-point variation. Wow. In a community where we are extreme minorities. We commit 50% of all violent offenses, evenly split, and we're only 13% of the population, okay? So we have a lot more encounters with police officers. And don't say the police officers are coming around because we're black. I'm talking about violent criminals. I'm talking about murder, 44% of murders, okay? You want to talk about real statistics? The police officers have way more to be fearful of in the black community than the other way around, okay? Wow. We commit, on average, a police officer is 18 and a half times more likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around.
Lord have mercy. I'm not shocked by some of this. Like I told people, I've lived in Brooklyn, New York, the earlier part of my life, coming from Haiti. I've lived in Queens. I've lived in Brooklyn. You see these eyes? They saw these numbers. I saw it. I saw it happening. I'm like, oh, yep. I know what she's talking about. It was happening. It was happening in the buildings that we live. It was happening in the neighborhood. It was bad. And it's when you live there and you see this stuff and you live around it and you hear, it's one thing you hear numbers. It's another thing you live in a community and you see the very thing that they're talking about. She's not lying. She's not lying.
Okay, so this entire narrative is complete smoke and mirrors. It's all made up. It's just election fodder. It's white versus black because it's an election year, not because black Americans are suffering at the hands of police officers more than white Americans. Do some police officers do the wrong thing? Yes. I don't think there's anybody in the world who has not encountered a police officer and thought this person is an absolute jerk who is power tripping, whether you are black or white. We know they exist. And we know they're always going to exist, by the way, because they're human beings. And sometimes human beings suck. In fact, if you want to attack a community for accidental slayings or brutality, did you know that doctors accidentally kill 250,000 people every year because of mistakes? Did you know that there's been doctors?
That is actually a good point here. And the doctors, of course, they're protected. But it's true. More have been done by doctors than any other supposed service person in the entire world. So yeah, I myself is in the health industry, so I know what she's talking about here. Very, very true. You know, in the case of C19 today, you know how many lives have been lost, how many people are being found dead as a result of having accepted the inoculation. These doctors, these physicians are responsible for these deaths, but nobody's going to be on bars. We know how that is, right? But again, I'll stay quiet.
That have been arrested for being serial killers, that just were killing people because they wanted to. Do we protest and boycott doctors? Do we assume all doctors are horrible human beings because some doctors are?
Yeah.
Or do we realize that society is not perfectible? People suck in every profession.
True.
It is no excuse to paint society with a broad brush. It is.
I will go as far as to say, even in churches, there's been corruption. Even in churches, they may not have killed people, but there's a lot of sexual stuff happening among ministers. There's a lot of ministers who are corrupt. There's a lot of priests who are corrupt. And if you go back in history, religion, although I'm not an atheist, praise God, I'm a pastor, but the atheist man has a point when it comes to this. Religion has been accounted for more of the crimes and wars in our world than any other institution. And that's a fact. When I'm talking about religion here, I'm talking about not the true Bible-centered religion, not the one that Jesus started, the one that the devil infiltrated with his false teaching and ideologies. These religious movements are responsible for that. And I want to start calling names. You do some research, you will find out more deaths have been done, not just in history, but even as we speak today. There's a lot of religious movements that are part of murdering masses of people. And some have the audacity to use the Bible to confirm it when the Bible condemns the very act. But I'll stay quiet on that one. I just wanted to add that one too.
There's certainly no excuse to accept a Democrat narrative, okay, that black people are being disproportionately hunted down by police officers because of the color of their skin. You want to know the best way to avoid not being brutalized by a police officer is to limit the amount of encounters you need to have with them, especially when it comes to violent crimes. Okay. I am not going to stand for this continual bottom-feeding narrative of us martyring people that have had 5, 6, 7 stints in prison and then pretending they were upstanding heroes to our community. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Excuse my language. It's absolute bullshit. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having to play pretend. I'm tired.
She's right again. This woman is, it's just like, what do we do with Candice Owens? What do we do with Candice Owens? Just, oh Lord have mercy. Again, she's right. I can't argue against her.
Of sitting here and being called a coon or an Uncle Tom because I won't play this bottom-feeding game with you. If you want to hang up posters of criminals on your wall and talk about them as your martyrs, do it. Do it. You can do it. Kobe Bryant was my...
Even before I even watched this video, I was never a fan of the idea of George Floyd, you know, martyrdom. I guess because I'm very careful with every social movement that rises. As a Christian, I'm very careful. I'm very skeptical of any of them because I think a lot of this stuff is politically motivated. But I never had a desire to get a shirt or none of that. But I believe in supporting people in the community and helping them to heal from the pain that they themselves are experiencing. That's very real to them. But as far as George Floyd and everything, I never thought that was something that I could back up. It was never even a thought in my mind, you know. And there were people who would come to me and say, man, I know you're a black man. You know, the tensions are hot. Do you need me to do this for you? You know, and some of them were Caucasian. I'm like, I'm okay. This has nothing to do with me particularly because I'm a black man. I understand the fact you're trying to show love and care. This is something that's happening in the world right now. I mean, it's not, you're not mistreating me. Cops haven't done anything to me. Like, I'm not gonna take on the pain of George Floyd and carry it as if it is my reality. I can't do that. But I'm going to sympathize. I'm going to understand. I'm going to meet the people where they are and treat them like Jesus would. But what I will not do is run with the narrative just because it is a popular movement. And I'm very careful with popular movements. You know, even the scripture says, you know, that which seems to be that which the world is doing, the majority is doing, oftentimes is very much against God. So it's almost like, Noah's day, the majority did not get in, the majority did not get out of Lot. Whenever you follow the crowd, even the scripture says, you should not follow a multitude to do evil. Whenever there's a crowd going one direction, I've learned it's always best to go the other direction, because oftentimes the crowd is wrong. The crowd oftentimes have their stories backwards. So that's kind of the way I run things.
My idol, okay? I'll keep a photo of Kobe Bryant. You can keep one of George Floyd and pretend he was an upstanding human being that just once or twice put a gun across a pregnant woman's belly. Could you imagine that woman right now? That black woman, by the way, right? Watching everybody pretend this person was an upstanding human being who just at the age of 42 and 5 prison stints was going to get his life together. I mean, it's embarrassing. We are embarrassing in that regard, right? Yeah. This is why we have a cycle and a toxic culture, because nobody wants to tell the truth in Black America. It's so easy to be a victim. It's so easy to ask white people to bow down and apologize and do all these things for us. It's crap. It's crap. It's a lie. It's a farce. Our biggest problem is us, okay?
Our biggest problem is us. And I think that's the best thing she said throughout the whole thing. Our biggest problem is us. Okay, it's just what it is. And the same is true for every race, by the way. Every race has the same problem. You are your worst enemy. I am my worst enemy. I know Satan exists. The world is doing things. I know apostasy there, corrupt ministers and that. But really, my biggest problem is me, because I have to live with me. I have to deal with me. I have to pray for God to help me to overcome me. We are our biggest problems. And if we refuse to acknowledge that in the Black community, we're not being real with ourselves. We're not solving anything. All right. The enemy is not the one without. The enemy is the one within.
It's why we don't talk about it when black on black crime happens. It's why we don't talk about it when 40 black people are killed in one weekend during Memorial Weekend in Chicago. We don't want to talk about it.
Yep. The numbers are overwhelmingly true. We're talking about 9 people dying in 1 year, a whole bunch of noise, burning down cities. 40 people died in one weekend. Quiet. Like, what are you kidding? What is this? Like, what are we talking about? What is our argument? Candice Owens' argument is strong right now, and I don't know how anybody could counteract that. I think the best thing for a lot of people to do is to just be quiet, act like she didn't say anything, because what she's saying here is so true, unless you are deliberately ignoring the facts. That's the only way you can deny this. Oh, you just don't like her just because you don't like her. I don't say I'm a big fan of Candice. I think there are things she could say and do better. I think there could be a lot more compassion in her voice. There are videos that I've seen where she's done a good job at that. I think she can be a little bit of rough, tough a little bit. I'm not a big fan of that all the time, but nevertheless, that's who she is. You know what I'm saying? I respect her for who she is, and she has the right to be the person that she is. She doesn't have to be like me. She has to be however God wants her to be, and I respect that for what it is. Again, her arguments are strong, boy. Yeah. For those of you who are Black Lives Matter, well, you got to think about this all over again.
About any of that stuff. We don't want to talk about Baltimore. We don't want to talk about New Jersey. We don't want to talk about any of these places where black people are being slaughtered by other blacks, because that would mean that we had to be personally accountable, right? Yeah. That would mean personal responsibility. We don't do personal responsibility in our community. We don't do it. We blame white people, right? We only point a camera to white people when they do something, even though we do it at a way higher rate to ourselves, right? We celebrate our drug dealers. We're the only community, right, that would ever create hashtags to free people from prison because they committed crimes, like free Meek Mill.
That's true. That's true. That's what I was talking about in the beginning. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? It's weird. It's crazy. We are asking for criminals to be freed. Like, we want better communities, but we want the criminals on our streets. Like, what? Anyway.
Create hashtags to free people from prison because they committed crimes, like free Meek Mill, free this rapper, free this rapper. How hard is it to not spend multiple times in prison? How difficult is that? Is that too hard for us? Is that way too high of a mountain for us to scale, to do the right thing, to be upstanding citizens? That is the call to action that I have for Black America with Blexit. Like, why do we keep fulfilling this narrative? What do you think the perception of us, by the way, is on the outside? You ever look at the comments? You ever go into like an anonymous blog and see what people say? Oh, just black people being black people. I see those racist comments. Oh, just black people got to riot. Black people got to be black people. You know how they are. Oh, just black people being ignorant. That is the perception.
And why do they have this perception? Because we leave them with that ideology. And that's not true, because not all black folks are like that. I'm not like that. My families are not like that. I can tell you my entire side of the family are not like that. We don't even think that way. But again, this doesn't represent the black community. We are totally misrepresented as a race. And it's sad.
When people get to be anonymous and talk about us, that's what they think about us, right? They think that we are the kind of people that will forever uphold criminals as the martyrs of our society, that we will never take account for the things that we do wrong, right? That we don't have it within us to educate ourselves to get ahead. And that for those of us that actually do it, well, we get called coons, right? You got Condoleezza Rice, she's a coon.
Yeah.
Larry Elder, he's a coon.
Larry Elder.
Dr. Ben Carson, brain surgeon, first ever to perform the surgery of splitting twins that are connected by the head. He's a coon, right? What a loser he is.
That is true. We glorify the criminals and we downplay the successful. We glorify the gangsters. We pray for them. We lift them up, right? We put them on our TV screen. We put them on our T-shirts. But the other black men who've done the things that they were supposed to do, they did it correctly. They went to school. They kept their jobs. You know, they have a relationship with Jesus. They are an example to the community, to the black race. Oh, we call them names. We say that they are coons. We say that they are racist. Why do we do that? Like, what exactly are we trying to achieve?
What a stupid guy he is. Kanye West says he's not going to be told to do it because of the color of his skin. He's a coon. He's lost. He's in the sunken place. The sunken place. That's where we all are, right? Because we demand more and we will get more out of this society because we're going to get ahead, right?
I have to say, I've also gotten some of the, backslash or whip from the black community for even checking out videos like this, talking about Candice Owens, Larry Elder, just talking about conservative people that I think are really aligned more with my belief and perspective, especially my biblical perspective. The only people who in the comments are not very nice are black folks. The only people who come really strong at me, for at least for the vast majority, more of them, that doesn't mean all of them, are black folks. I get very little support. Both my wife and I, we get very little support from the black community on our channel. Very little. And that's not a good thing when we trying to do something here as Christians. And the ones that are supporting us are people of different race. A lot of them are Caucasian. When we even have the stats, when you go to your statistics on your YouTube channel, it tells you everything about the community, who you have standing by your side, who believes in your dreams, who's standing by you, who's pushing you. Majority of them are people of other race. Very few of them are blacks. Now, I know that has a lot to do with, the demographic, of course, and things like that, the community. So I'm not going to go into some extreme perspective here. But we have a lot of black friends. We have a lot of people that we've interacted with, churches we've been at that are blacks. But the support level predominantly coming from the Caucasian community. Just the facts.
That's what's going to happen. We're going to get ahead. Black conservatives get ahead because we don't subscribe to this narrative. Because you're not going to catch me outside trying to grab a TV pretending that it's because a martyr named George Floyd got killed. Okay? I'm a big believer that no matter what color you are, you do stupid things, you win stupid prizes. Okay? We have to do better. We have to teach our kids better. Or we're not going to get ahead, right? Anyways, this is just a rant because I have been feeling super annoyed at these depictions in society. I have no apologies here to make. George Floyd is not my martyr. He can be yours. That's all I have to say to Black America.
Wow. What do you say to that? I'm not gonna say anything else. This video is long enough. We can end it right here. But listen. There was a prophet in the Bible, right? Prophet Isaiah was sent to Hezekiah. Hezekiah was sick. He was dying. You know what the Lord said to him? Set your house in order. Because you're going to die, but set your house in order. But I'll tell you this much. Zechariah turned his face toward the wall. He prayed to God, and God added 15 years to his life. And the whole idea is, some of us, we want everybody to heal our situation, help us with this and that, when in reality, the real problem is in your own home. Go clean up your own house. Set your house in order. The Black community, set your house in order. Save your marriages. Save your children. Teach them good principles. Go home and fix your broken families. You really want to help society? Go home and fix the brokenness that are happening within this home of fatherlessness. Go there and address these issues if you really want to address the problem, because it is not in politics. It's not with the police. This is just what happens, the interaction, the response, the back and forth that happens as a result of broken homes. And if we get back to the house, we deal with what's going wrong in our house, God will bless everything else. I believe it. And that's where I think I stand. If you like this type of video, make sure you like and subscribe and click the bell icon for more notification upload. What is your perspective on this? Do you agree with Candice Owens or disagree with her? Where do you take a stand concerning this issue? And I know it is a sensitive subject, and my thoughts are my thoughts. You don't have to agree with me. I'm entitled to them. So are you entitled to yours. Be respectful in the comments below. Share your thought and perspective as well. Until next time, and as always, remember to look unto Jesus and live by faith. Have a good one. Bye.